这一集说故事的人有一部分的访谈是用英语进行的。您现在收听的是英语原音，如果需要中文配音的版本，请点选另一个单集。我没有孩子，这个决定是什么时候下的，我已经不记得了。我只记得10多年前，我跟我老公萝卜头谈到结婚的时候，曾经有这样一个讨论。他问我，你想不想生小孩？我说不想萝卜头说我也不想。整个过程不到30秒，这就是我们夫妻2人对要不要生小孩这件事最认真的沟通，也是唯一的一次沟通。这么多年来，我看我身边很多朋友跟我一样，早早就决定了不生小孩，但有很多朋友即使客观条件很困难，还是很努力的要生孩子。宗翰就是这样一个例子。宗翰是同志，36岁，从事新闻工作。我跟宗翰就是因为共同主持节目认识的。他跟他的先生在5年前结婚，去年2人决定要生孩子。同志要生自己的孩子，以现在的科技一定要透过捐卵跟代孕。由于台湾的法规规定同志不能接受捐卵，于是2个人决定到美国去寻求协助。所以你在找卵母这个过程里面，你有没有一些什么 criteria， 就是它的你觉得应该要有一些什么标准这样子？
最重要的还是健康。我觉得很有趣，就是我们在看这些档案的时候，有时候不知道就很像在看那种交友档案，很难说清楚有什么明确的 criteria。虽然那个这个卵母的机构有问我们，然后他有大概给我们一些指标，就是说，你应该要看一下他的身高啊，看一下他的血型啊，看一下他的种族啊，看一下他的学历这样。但最后我们还是比较靠感觉。
OK，
看了一个很顺眼的人，然后后来有进行 Skype 的通话。那我们最一开始其实挑了一个非常年轻的23岁的美国的女生，那但是她跟我们就 Skype 见面的那一天，她就是突然消失了。那卵母机构就讲说，有些很年轻的人，他们虽然说要捐卵，但是他们可能还没有想清楚，所以后来我们是找了第2位26岁的一个美国女生，然后才成功找到我们要的卵母。
你觉得最挫折的是什么？
最挫折我觉得就是无法预期的东西太多了。我刚才讲我们找到了一个很顺眼的卵母嘛，跟他聊得也很开心，然后他对于性别平权也非常的有意思，就觉得哇，就是一切都是非常的完美。但后来才得到医生的报告，就说其实他上一次捐卵的那个捐卵数很少。那因为捐卵数少，其实它会影响到后来成功的几率。那它的少是已经就是有跨过边缘的那种，所以那是第一个打击。那第2个打击就是说，我们知道说他的祖父其实有摄护腺癌的历史，那我们就说健康很重要嘛。但是后来我们也请教了一些医学专业人士，就说男性都会有摄护腺的问题，所以这个也不是太严重。
当初他为什么捐卵这件事情，你觉得对你是重要的？可我老实讲，我在想的时候，我会觉得为什么重要呢？他为什么捐，跟他的卵子的品质并没有关系，可是为什么这件事对你是重要的？
我觉得它有一个很明确的影响，就是像我们当初在寻找的时候是要具名的捐赠者，那他为什么捐也决定了说他跟我们的互动模式，因为我们希望我们的捐卵者在未来跟孩子是有互动的。那如果他真的只是为了赚钱，或者是说他就是一个兴趣怎么样，他没有想到未来可能要跟跨文化的家庭做联系的话，我觉得对我们来讲它会是不一样的意义。
所以你其实基本上是有把这个卵母规划进将来你孩子的生活里面嘛？
可以这么说，但这也是一个很微妙的规划，因为我们现在有这个捐卵者嘛，往后也有代孕者。虽然我们都叫他中文都说卵母育母嘛，但是比较中性来讲，他们就是帮忙我们生这个小孩，所以我们希望跟他们有互动，但那种互动又不是像他们真的是妈妈的那种互动，所以现在也很难说。我们希望可以让我们会完全诚实告知孩子他的身世，可是我们也在拿捏说跟着捐卵者或者是代孕者的互动要到什么程度。
那 你如果发现这个卵母有一些资讯跟你知道的不一样的时候，你感觉是什么？
我觉得会非常非常挫折之外，可能会也很生气。那因为中间也有这个卵母的机构嘛，所以就会觉得被欺骗。如果真的这样子的事情发生，然后甚至是进一步，因为毕竟我们是有商业合作的嘛，就类似像这样的一个过程，所以也可能会跟他们要求赔偿啊等等。
可是你觉得要知道到多少？就是说这个东西很困难啊。你就是说你当然是尽量了解，对不对？可是能够知道到多少呢？
这个说实在我们也不晓得，因为我们后来才发现说，有很多东西是我们后来才会知道。比如说最近他才刚做完他的基因检测，那里面他的基因也有一项是等于说，如果跟我们配对，我们也有那个基因问题的话，那小孩子就会有这个基因上面的问题。那所以我们也不晓得这个知道能够到多少，但是就是至少在健康方面能够尽力的去保证这个孩子是没有问题的，我觉得这个是我们的期望。
我觉得你有讲说你那个卵母那时候光看照片而已嘛，对不对？
对，
这个你的资讯，你自己想象中的这个人跟真实的这个人可能会有一些差距。
差很多。我们光是一开始看到他的档案，从档案照片里面就跟交友一样，然后他看起来是一个好像比较有艺术性格，然后比较冷冷的一个女生。然后因为他提供了一张跟他爸爸的合照，他小时候婴儿的时期跟他爸爸合照，所以觉得会猜测他的这个他们父女感情很好，所以很多东西是你自己脑补的。那等到我们跟他 Skype 通话的时候，就是看到那个框框，那也有进一步的互动，可是也不是知道他所有嘛，所以后来看到他照片上，他摸一张那个猫的照片很可爱，但是也注意到他手部有刺青，然后就觉得说，那他也许比我们想象的更叛逆，所以那个东西好像是拼图一样，一块一块拼起来的。
这个是加分还减分？
你说有刺青吗？其实我当然是希望说，我自己在那时候我才觉得说，原来对我来讲我会在意这件事情，因为刺青就可能会有比如说什么血液感染的风险嘛。但其实我一般对于朋友刺青是没有任何的意见，我自己都想去刺青。可是当我看到我未来的卵母他身上有刺青的时候，我发觉我居然介意这件事情。
我问你哦，另外一个是我知道在卵母可能这个问题少一点哈，可是你如果知道你这个卵母他以前已经捐了很多了，就是说你的孩子会有很多很多很多的兄弟姐妹，这个对你来讲有没有影响？
我觉得要看多少，因为卵母的话通常都是有经验的会比较好嘛，因为它不像捐精一样打一打就有了，其实捐卵过程蛮辛苦的，所以那时候在寻找卵母过程，他们卵母机构跟很多专业人士也建议说，有经验是好的。但你说如果像比如说到超过什么100个，已经像是工厂流水线生产，我就觉得有点怪怪的。
是太多也是不行的。
对，就会觉得这个孩子他变成了一个好像是一种就是机械式生产下的产物，而没有这么好像他不是独一无二的这种感觉。
为什么独一无二很重要？
因为每一个生命都应该是独一无二的。那如果是有任何人是就是这样固定产制就是每周都是产出多少的小朋友，我觉得这样子就说不上，好像有哪里怪怪的。
刚刚讲的都还只是精神上的压力，事实上为了生这个孩子，两人预计整个代孕的过程可能要花上400-500万台币。宗翰说他是把他的养老金都押上了，还把老公拉进来，他有时会觉得很过意不去，而且他也很清楚孩子生出来也不一定保证爱你，或是一定是个好孩子，但还是充满期待的要迎接孩子的来临。我忍不住要想，这么辛苦是为什么呢？以前常常有人问我，你难道没有英文说的这个 urge， 就是说你生理上就会告诉你说你需要做母亲？我从来没有，真的没有。所以我看到宗翰这样要为一个没见过面的人承诺一生为他付出，我很想知道他的动力到底是什么呢？
最大的动力就是我觉得我说不出来可能我觉得我就是很喜欢小朋友，然后我也很喜欢我兄弟姐妹的小孩，那我 也会很喜欢我自己的小孩。就我说不出来为什么他好像就是一个一直，因为我本来以为我是同志，所以我没办法有小孩。然后后来发现，有这个机会之后，我就有一种这种莫名的追寻，我说不出来。我倒想要知道人为什么会有人不想要生小孩。我觉得就是对于人生的想象吧。如果我这样来想的话，因为我就会觉得，在我的人生的蓝图里面，我有小孩，然后我也希望我小孩有他的小孩，然后我未来可以看到我的孙子。所以现在就是他就好像是一个希望，就对我来讲啊，对我跟我老公来讲，然后这个希望就会降临在我们的家中。现在因为有小孩这个目标，我们的生活其实充满了动力。就是我们的生活就是好，我们现在要努力存钱，我们开了一个账户，存小孩的基金。然后像我也开了另外一个账户，买美金。为什么？因为要去美国接小孩要花很多钱。因为这个希望，然后给了你很多行动的动力跟 idea， 就是我要做1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8、9。不过回想起来，真的是很不容易。
当我问宗翰你为什么一定要生孩子，他回答我才奇怪你为什么不生孩子。这个答案我觉得妙极了。我想要不要生孩子，的确是一个只能自己问自己的问题吧。但接下来我们要去访问一位很爱生孩子的阿瑞，他有多爱生呢？他有70多个孩子，散布在世界各地。这个数字我们没有办法很精确地告诉大家的原因，是因为每个月都在增加。在策划这个故事的时候，我就想，还有谁会比宗翰更适合来进行这个访谈呢？你现在收听的是说故事的人，我是范琪斐。稍后我们一起来听听阿瑞的故事。
范姐跟我讲说，她很想知道为什么人想要生小孩。我就想起了一位把捐精当作慈善、协助生育当作事业的名人，45岁的纽约市立大学数学系教授 Ari Nagel。他是全球知名的超级捐精者。
So my name is Ari Nagel. I live in New York City, and I had 20 kids in 2020. 3 kids born last month, and that was number 75, 76, and 77. Of course, I have a due date this week.
视讯镜头里面的 Ari 看起来很随性，本来上半身没有穿衣服的他，听到我要开镜头跟他视讯，才赶快拿了一件衬衫披上，整个人看起来很潇洒。Ari 看起来比他实际年龄年轻很多，讲话的速度很快，听起来很聪明。
Currently, I'm in Massachusetts, and I have an IUI in around 2 hours at a clinic in near Boston, and to make a baby. It's actually a younger sibling for a child that I already have here in Massachusetts.
Ari 虽然是全球知名的超级捐精者，但他捐精是分文不取，还愿意配合需要受孕的妈妈到处去旅行。虽然单身女子跟女同志透过人工生殖的费用已经比我们男同志少了10倍，大约是50到100万左右，但对于许多女生来说，还是一笔很沉重的负担。所以 Ari 的出现对他们来说，就像是天降神兵。
I did go to Africa twice last month. I went to help a woman in Zimbabwe, and then I flew back later in the month to help a woman in Nigeria. Sometimes because of COVID, I'm not working in person, and I'm able to teach online, so it allowed me to travel more. Of course, in January, I went to those 2 African countries and a couple of different states in the United States. In December, I went to a country called Georgia. It like borders Turkey and Russia. And then in December, I also went to Barbados. It's a beautiful Caribbean island. It's amazing. And then in November, I went to Russia.
短短几个月就跑了这么多国家，这根本就是环游世界去捐精，非常不可思议。在访问的过程中呢，我也发现 Ari 还有一个我自己在找捐卵者也非常在乎的特质，就是他是具名的捐赠者。这也就是说，他除了帮助这些妈妈受孕，孩子出生之后，他也愿意跟孩子保持联系。我问 Ari， 他77个小孩子的名字都记得吗？他对这个问题嗤之以鼻。
Do you have a list of them, or how do you remember all of them?
I do remember all of my kids' names. Of course, I'm a college professor, so I teach mathematics. And at the end of the semester, I know all my students' names. And I have 100 students a semester. But, when you're together with them for a couple of weeks, eventually, after taking attendance each day, you just learn all their names. My kids, of course, I'm together with not just for 12 weeks. I'm together with them for many, many years. So I do know all their names. And I have a spreadsheet to keep track, obviously, of birthdays and contact info and addresses, the moms and pictures. So I have just a Google Sheets document that I keep track of all the kids and the due dates and the ones on the way.
其实我自己也考虑过捐精诶。我曾经跟女同志朋友聊到这个话题，我说如果你们需要的话，随时可以找我，因为我自己体验到要去找捐卵者没有办法自己生的那种痛苦，所以如果我身边有任何朋友需要我的精子，我绝对是义不容辞。但是如果你问我会不会想像 Ari 这样子不断提供自己的精子，我不晓得诶。我在看 Ari 的时候忍不住会想，这个人是从小立志要当捐精人吗？
Have you thought about this? Like you would be father of so many children?
No, never ever imagined when I was young. Of course, I grew up in a very traditional family, and I was my parents are religious, Jewish, and I grew up in a Jewish community. Everyone in my school looked like me, sounded like me, was the same religion, same race, same everything. And I just envisioned my life to be something along those lines. Obviously, as a kid growing up, I thought, yep, I get married in my 20s, have a very traditional family. I got into a motorcycle accident when I was 17 years old. Just someone ran a stop sign, and I broke my leg. But it was the other guy's fault, and he gave me $70,000. His insurance company just paid. I didn't even have to sue. The insurance company just paid me, not even for my medical bills, because my insurance paid that. They paid me for my pain and suffering. So instead of investing that $70,000, like maybe I should have, by buying, a tech stock, I spent it, but I stretched it out. I traveled to over 40 countries. And of course, I traveled to Germany, and I traveled to Taiwan, and I traveled all over the world. And I had an amazing experience. It took me a few years to plow through all that money traveling around the world. But during that process, I lost my faith, and I stopped being such a devout Jew. Of course, seeing all of these other faiths all around the world. And, when I think about, the community I grew up in and all of my classmates, and, of course, all the students were just like me. They were all just white Jewish males. I went to an all-boys school. And then now I look at my family, and, of course, they're all different races and all different religions, and my family's all different orientations. And it's a much more multicultural, interesting experience. And I think probably that started me on the path of, thinking out of the box and not living this traditional lifestyle.
这一趟环游世界之旅，让他对于应该原本平凡无奇的一生有了新的想象。但我觉得，真正促使他成为一位超级捐精者的，还是一份来自大家庭的爱。
In the beginning, maybe there was more of a desire to grow my family as well. From a big family, I have 4 brothers, 2 sisters, 27 nieces and nephews, and of course, all my siblings are married in very, very traditional relationships. But of course, after you have a boy, and then you have a girl, and then you have another boy, I think the desire to grow your family is not the same. I think at this point, with 77 children, the woman's coming to me asking me for help to have a child. What's one more? And of course, they don't care how many children I have. They don't have any. And I know how much joy and love my children brought me. So if I'm able to help them have a child and experience that same love and joy, then, it's really not a big effort on my part.
男生应该都有打手枪的经验， 但是我没有想到 Ari 可以把打手枪这件事情变得这么有意义。他说他的精子对他来讲真的是非常的有力量，可以带给这么多人幸福。捐精超过12年的 Ari 算着说自己到2月已经又让14个女生怀孕。也许很多人会怀疑他是不是自恋，或者是有什么帝王家族梦，但可能是我自己的经历吧。我很理解找他的女生想要生个孩子的心情，更何况他不只是一位捐精者，他还常常在网络上放上自己和世界各地孩子的聚会合照。在他帮忙一对台湾的女同志怀孕后，还曾飞到亚洲来关心他们。
When the baby turned 1, I flew out to Asia and we celebrated together. It was actually pretty fun because I ended up getting together with her. One of the moms is of Malaysian descent, so they spent time in Malaysia, but we ended up meeting in Thailand. And it was Mother's Day, Father's Day, and my daughter's birthday all in the same week because it was Mother's Day in Thailand, it was Father's Day in Taiwan, and then it was my daughter's birthday that week. So we celebrated a week together, but each of us had our own special day.
他说这对住在台湾的女同志等疫情结束还想要找他生第二胎，真的很神奇。Ari 这样来者不拒的慈善捐精者也受到媒体的广泛报道，有人甚至还开玩笑用 Sperminator 精子战士来形容他，但是他一点都不在乎。
Yeah, obviously, my kids don't call me Sperminator. My kids call me Dad. Of course, I take great joy in spending time with my kids and look forward to getting together with them. Sometimes sad because I know how much they deserve a full-time father and I'm not able to be there for them. And it makes me extra sad when I cry when they leave and, they don't understand. And I get calls from kids, all over the country. And they're like, can you come visit me today? And it's like, listen, you're 1,200 miles away. That could be a little challenging. I think there are opinions of random strangers that are reading an article in the New York Post. You can't really, stress out about those opinions. I think ultimately the opinions that matter most to me are the opinions of my children, the opinions of the mothers that I call family.
我开始理解这些找到 Ari 的女生为什么会为了这个男人疯狂，甚至还组成了一个俱乐部，定期举办家族聚会。因为对这些本来不可能会有下一代、大多社经地位很低的女子来说，有了一位长相不差、教授级的免费捐精者，还愿意花时间跟孩子相处，实在是梦寐以求。不过 Ari 让这么多的孩子叫他爸爸是有代价的，他被5名他帮忙过的女子控告，而且必须付出薪水的一半作为这些孩子的赡养费。但是他并不后悔。
You were sued by 5 mothers? For you, it must hurt, right?
I mean, the money's going to my kids. It's not going for like a parking ticket. When I get a parking ticket, that hurts. I'm like, oh my gosh, New York City doesn't need my money. But, when I'm paying each week and the money's going to the welfare of my children, it's a much easier pill to swallow. And obviously it wasn't the arrangement. And certainly I feel like I struggle financially. I think if you look at my bank account, you would say, well, I'm quite poor. But when I look at my life, I certainly don't feel poor. I have a lot of love and joy in my life. And of course, I travel quite a bit. I don't feel poor at all.
捐精捐到被告，没收到钱还要帮忙付钱养小孩，真的是前所未闻。我问他还会不会怕被告，他展现出一种数学教授独特的幽默乐观。
The law in the United States is you pay 17% of your salary for your child. So I make around $100,000. The first child that sues me is going to get $17,000 a year. But then my salary is lowered to $83,000. So the next woman that sues me will only get 17% of the $83,000 that I have left. And then after that, the next one's going to get 17% of what's left. So after 9 children, there's less than half my salary left. Of course, 20 grand is going to taxes. There's really less incentive now for women to sue me. I think ultimately in the end, women that are looking for a paycheck would probably have to find someone else. And of course, I haven't had a new child support lawsuit in many years. It was really just the first few women that ended up suing, but none of the other women suing. So it's not remarkable that 5 women sued me and that 5 women were greedy and, wanted to, just collect a check every week for 21 years. To me, what's remarkable is these over 70 women that did not sue.
有时候还不只是法律跟经济上的风险，当有女子需要正当理由怀孕时，为了孩子顺利出生， Ari 还会冒另外一种险。
So who was the woman you almost got married with?
Not almost. I did. I got married a couple of times.
You did.
Getting married for religious reasons. Sometimes I'm getting married for family reasons. Sometimes I'm getting married for legal reasons. I know it's probably, not 100% kosher, certainly, but of course I'm not lying to the woman. These are not real marriages. They're fraudulent marriages, just to help facilitate the process. And I'm sure I'll be married again. I have a woman right now who's pregnant. She's recently pregnant, and she's from Afghanistan. Of course, she lives here in the United States, and her parents are very, very old-fashioned. They're Muslim and very devout Muslims. And of course, they don't want to accept the grandchild because the child's not going to be a product of the marriage. So I'm going to visit them next month. We're waiting till after the first trimester is over, and we're going to have an imam marry us, just so that the grandparents will accept their grandchild. And to me, I think that's just a small price to pay to have the grandparents play a positive role in the child's life. She's in a lesbian relationship. She's not interested in marrying me. I know that. She would very much like to marry her lesbian lover. Unfortunately, the traditional culture of Afghanistan doesn't really facilitate that. So we didn't sleep with each other to conceive the baby, and we're not going to sleep with each other on our wedding night. I gave her the sperm in a cup, and she got pregnant. And as soon as the first trimester is over, I'm going to be going there and getting married again.
钟汉，这个故事说到现在，好像都是Ari在牺牲奉献，难道没有什么令人觉得可疑的地方吗？
其实就我来讲，因为我自己都希望透过代孕生小孩嘛，所以我听到这么多人，其实他们是从Ari 那边得到帮助，我觉得非常非常的感动。但是我当然也会想说，这Ari到底想干嘛？一方面，你知道，你访问他的时候，你可以透过视讯感觉到他讲这些事情的时候很有热情。你就会讲说哇好棒，如果也有人这样帮忙我有多好。但是他后来的说法就会让我觉得好像有哪里怪怪的。
That's funny because first of all, I look at my brothers and sisters, and they have 3 kids, 5 kids, 7 kids, and they have a lot less free time than me because they want to go away for a few days, they got to get their wife's permission. I have 77 children, but I think in many ways I have more freedom than any one of my moms that have even one child. I think anyone who becomes a parent and is the full-time custodial parent, they don't have any free time, and for their love life, they if they want to go out on a date, they need to find a babysitter. I just got back from Florida. I was there for 2 weeks, escaping the winter here, and I didn't need to ask anyone permission. Of course, I didn't even need to get a hotel. I have kids that I could stay by. If I road trip down to Florida, I passed through around a dozen states, but I have places to stay all along the way. And I think one mom having one child probably has less freedom than me with my 77. Of course, they're really doing all the heavy lifting. I'm almost like the fun uncle. I go there and I get to play with the kids. And of course, if they need help, sometimes I'll take the kids for the weekend here and there and give them a break, but they're doing most of the work.
这样听起来呢，阿宇其实是想要帮助世界各地的女子，也想当大家庭的父亲，却不用负担任何的责任，甚至还可以保有个人的自由，随时都可以到不同的地方旅行。我忍不住想，这样是不是也算蛮自私的呢？另外，阿宇难道不担心有这么多的后代，他的孩子会在不知情下成为乱伦的受害者吗？
There might be possibility that they would meet each other without knowing each other, having same father, right? So if they date, there will be some dangerous situation for them.
I think the scenario you're talking about would be true for anonymous sperm donors. when you're an anonymous sperm donor, the risk of them meeting. And that's why there's limits to the number of children you could have. The recommendation here in the United States is that you should only have 25 kids per 800,000 people in the population. Of course, I'm in a city of, Greater New York has over 20 million people. So I'm not even close to that. Besides the fact that my children are really spread out all over the United States, not just in the Greater New York area. Plus the fact that, my children do by and large know who their father is and they know who their brothers and sisters are. So I think if I was an anonymous sperm donor cranking out all these kids, that could be a risk.
虽然阿瑞这样说，但我想起了过去在同志家庭权益促进会的讨论。由于同志家庭的孩子常常有机会聚在一起，为了避免他们约会之后才发现自己有同一个父亲或母亲，身世告知是很重要的。阿瑞是具名捐赠者没错，但是他经常跟许多接受他精子捐赠的母亲一起聚会，孩子们也玩在一起，这真的不会有问题吗？
I have a Facebook group where the moms are all friends and they keep in touch. Of course, since COVID, we haven't been getting together as often, but this past week, I celebrated one of the moms who were renewing their vows, so I flew to Florida, but it wasn't just me in Florida. I had 4 6-year-olds there as well, and they weren't from Florida. They flew in from New York and from New Jersey, and we took a nice joint vacation together, and they went to Disney World, and we stayed we shared a hotel, and it was, the kids are bonding and growing up, and the chances of them falling in love and not, is going to be as a sibling, not as a romantic partner, because the kids are bonding and celebrating each other's birthdays. I got a birthday coming up this weekend, and of course there'll be a couple of other 1-year-olds that'll be joining for the birthday, a couple of the other moms that are joining. There's a Facebook group with around 60 of the moms in the group, and they keep in touch via social media. It's a private group, and it's true they have 77 and only 60 join the group, and of course not all of them have Facebook, but a lot of them keep in touch, talk to each other every day. Some of them get together every single day.
阿瑞的世界已经超乎常人可以想象。我很好奇，如果有人像他一样也想成为超级捐精者，他会怎么看呢？
I think it certainly has its pros and cons. I don't know if I really can recommend it, but it certainly brought me a lot of joy. But, I think the real joy that comes is not just, wow, I have so many kids and I'm going to pass on a legacy. I don't know. When I'm dead, I'm dead. It doesn't really matter what my legacy is going to be. I'm not going to be there to enjoy it. My advice would be, don't just, spread your seed. My advice for the guys would be, try and play a positive role in your kids' lives, and it'll bring you a lot of joy. And, try and be honest with the women, and it'll help alleviate a lot of problems going forward. So just be straightforward about how many kids you have. Eventually the truth comes out, no matter what. So lying to the kid about who the father is, they're going to find out. Yeah. So I think the key is to just always be honest with the kids, because ultimately in the end, they'll be able to handle whatever you give them, except the dishonesty. That's really where they're going to struggle.
没错，至少阿瑞是诚实的，对自己跟对方都是。我的确有听过捐精者蒙骗受赠者，为的只是取信对方，要散播自己的基因。也有父母亲蒙骗孩子的身世，只因为小孩不是亲生的。但诚实为上策，阿瑞至少做到了这件事。另外，阿瑞告诉我，45岁的他打算在46岁收山，因为他爸爸也是在这个年纪让妈妈怀上家中最小的妹妹。他说，虽然自己可以捐精到70、80岁，但是精子的品质会因为年纪慢慢出问题。他不希望提供有缺陷的精子。这样想，他还是蛮理性的。我最后问他是怎么看待自己的精子呢？
How do you look at your sperm? It's like a golden liquid to many women, but what's your relationship with your own sperm?
It's very valuable, to so many women, because, if they went to the clinic, it would cost them $1,000, for 1/5 of my ejaculate. Because, when a guy donates sperm at a clinic, they take that and they divide it into different ampules, and when they sell it to women, they're selling only 1/5 of the guy's ejaculate or 1/4 of the guy's ejaculate, and it's frozen. So that means half of them are dead. So what they're getting is much, much less than what they would get with maybe a fresh sample, where they're getting almost 10 times the amount because it's fresh and it's not frozen. And it costs me nothing to produce, but it's saving the woman a lot of money. And ultimately, in the end, the money that's saved is really helping them support the child. So why should they exhaust all their funds at a fertility clinic when they could be saving that money for the future child? That's part of the reason why I don't charge them. I'd rather they save the money for the future baby. There's guys all over the world ejaculating every single day, and it's just going down the shower drain, and here I'm just doing the same thing, except it's going into a cup, and it's making a woman very, very happy.
你对阿瑞这样的父亲感想如何？你觉得是把我们传统概念里的父亲的角色变大了、变小了、多元化了，还是你根本不认为他是父亲？那他是什么呢？我们的工作人员中，唯一一个有孩子的燕豪跟我说，把一个孩子带到这个世界来是个多巨大的责任，即使你不用养。他完全无法想象一个人身上可以背负70-80个这样的责任。下一集说故事的人，我们就要去访问一位用捐精的方式生下来的人，他有1000个兄弟姐妹。说故事的人是由范琪斐的美国时间与实在影像共同制作，与百灵果 News 协同制作，制作人是范琪斐，企划是林瑞珠。这集我是捐精超人，主持是范琪斐，记者是邹宗翰，导演剪辑是王博安，执行制作张燕玲，混音是赵仁俊。如果你喜欢说故事的人，请在 Apple Podcast 给我们5星好评，并且订阅分享给你的朋友。说故事的人，我们下周见。